7 years of the Formula One World Championship, Nigel Mansell could only ponder titles that got away. 1986, a tire explosion on the streets of Adelaide, Australia cost Mansell the lead in both the race and the championship. In 87, a practice crash at Suzuka, Japan knocked Mansell out of the season's final 2 races. After a brief retirement born of frustration, in 1991, Mansell's agony was more protracted. A wheel fell off during a pit stop in Portugal, and Nigel lost ground to Ayrton Senna. He fought back with a win in Spain, but in Japan, Mansell spun off, and the crown went to Senna. 3 times a bridesmaid, Mansell's pain was becoming the stuff of pit lane legend. This season, Nigel could afford a confident smile. Fitter and more determined than ever, he was presented with the ultimate Grand Prix weapon, the Williams-Renault FW14B. With it, Mansell ran off a record stretch of 5 poles and 5 victories in the first 5 races. With each victory, each step up the ladder to the title that had eluded him for so long, Mansell's popularity with the fans swelled to new heights. On home ground at the British Grand Prix, Mansell mania boiled over. A wire-to-wire victory by their hero sent the crowds into a frenzy. The Hungarian Grand Prix featured a vintage Mansell charge. He did not win, but his runner-up finish put to rest forever the heartbreak of second-place finishes in the points. Today, Nigel Mansell begins his reign as the world driving champion in the Grand Prix of Belgium. ESPN, the world leader in motorsports coverage, presents Speed World. With 5 races to go in 1992, the driver's champion has been crowned, but there is still much unresolved business as the teams arrive in southern Belgium, deep in the Ardennes forest, at the longest circuit in all of Formula One, Spa-Francorchamps. Hello again, everyone. I'm Bob Varsha. Welcome to Spa, home of some of the ficklest weather in all of motorsports. We expect to crown the Constructors' Champion for 1992 today, and if you're spending some $40 million a year developing an engine, that title is more important to you than the Driver's Crown. Spa is a track that has produced many surprises over the year. Back in 1964, 4 different drivers led on the final lap. Of course, back then, this track was some 8.7 miles long. In 1983, they shortened it to a mere 4.3 miles, and just last year, 6 different drivers had a shot at the victory before Ayrton Senna brought half a gearbox home in a 1-2 McLaren Honda sweep. Senna is very much a man in the news, along with new world champion Nigel Mansell here in Spa, and for more on that, we turn to ESPN Formula One analyst David Hobbs. David, Ayrton has a shot at history here.
He does, Bob. There's no doubt about it that Spa is the favorite circuit amongst the drivers. It's long, it's fast, and it's demanding. And of course, as it's mainly public highway, they only get to visit it just this one time a year. And when it comes to public highways, Ayrton Senna is in a class of his own. He won 3 times on the streets of Detroit. He won twice on the streets of Phoenix. He's won the Monte Carlo Grand Prix 5 times, the last 4 in a row. And he's won more times here than anybody else, also 5 times, again, the last 4 in a row. A truly incredible record. Well, to do well in any Grand Prix, you've got to be well up at the grid during practice and qualifying. And on Friday and Saturday, we saw our usual amount of action both on and off the track. The first incident on Friday was a big one. Eric Comas left the road at 190 miles an hour, and a concerned Senna stopped to help. Then Riccardo Patrese, leaving the bus stop chicane, had this moment, nearly did a lot of damage to the car, but luckily got away relatively unscathed. Ayrton Senna, not wishing to be left out of things, had this moment going into the bus stop chicane. Dug up a bit of real estate, but didn't do any damage to his car. Saturday morning dawned incredibly wet here in the Ardennes, as it's likely to do. And poor old Gianni Morbidelli had this very, very long spin in his Minardi, digging up lots of real estate, backing into the fence and doing a lot of damage to his car. Giving the mechanics a lot of work to do on Saturday night. What could have been the worst incident of the weekend was this that happened to Gerhard Berger going down the straight, just absolutely floated off on the water and really totally destroyed the car. A little bit of an oil fire, but luckily Gerhard Berger jumped out absolutely unharmed. And then to end Saturday afternoon off, poor old Martin Brundle braking for the hairpin. Did not know that Stefano Modena was about to attack him viciously behind, putting both the Jordan and the Benetton car out of the running for the rest of Saturday.
All right, thank you, David. Keep in mind that tight La Source hairpin is the very first corner in this race. Now let's welcome the 3rd member of our broadcast team down on the starting grid. Here's Andrew Marriott.
Yes, Bob, as you know, one of the problems here at Spa is it can be dry in some places and wet in the others. It's just started to rain here in the pits. Everyone is still on slick tyres. We could see a lot of action in the pits. We've also, of course, got that new safety car. Apparently, if the safety car goes out, then nobody is allowed in the pits to change onto the vital wet tyres. So we could see a lot of fun and games. I think this is going to be a very exciting race. So back to you. We'll keep you updated, of course, on this weather conditions. But it is spotting with rain. Bob?
Oh my, and we have reports saying a massive storm is moving through Brussels and is on its way toward the Ardennes. We'll be back live to Belgium with news of the silly season. Stay with us. Welcome back live to Belgium. As Andrew Marriott has already reported, it is starting to rain on the front side of the racetrack. As it does, let's take a look at the starting grid for today's 12th round of the Formula One World Championship. On the pole for the 10th time this year, the Williams-Renault of Nigel Mansell, who could break the single-season record for wins he shares with Ayrton Senna with his 9th today. His pole time of 150.545 seconds is 141 miles per hour. Next to him, Ayrton Senna in the McLaren Honda, a man who may be self-exiled from Formula One next year, 2.1 seconds off Mansell's pole. Row 2, Michael Schumacher, celebrating the first anniversary of his Formula One debut in the Benetton Ford. Next to him, Riccardo Patrese in the Williams-Renault, who may be Schumacher's teammate at Benetton next year. Row 3, two men we know will be teammates. Jean Alesi in the Ferrari, who led this race briefly in 1991. Next to him, Gerhard Berger of Austria in the McLaren Honda, the same car, incredibly, that he crashed in yesterday's practice. He will be with Ferrari next year. Row 4 will be Terry Boutsen in his home race, the best qualifying performance by the Ligier team this year. Next to him, Mika Hakkinen in the Lotus Ford, 4 Ford engines in the top 10. On row 5, Martin Brundle in the second Benetton Ford. And next to him, Johnny Herbert, both drivers from Great Britain. Herbert has re-signed with the Lotus team for next year. Row 6 will be Gabriella Tarquini in the Fond Metal and Yvonne Capelli in the Ferrari. Row 7, Andrea De Cesaris, who set fast lap in this race back in 1983, next to Michele Alboreto. Row 8 will be Eric Van de Poel in the Fond Metal next to the Dallara of J.J. Leto. Row 9, Stefano Modena, who had that big crash into Martin Brundle, next to Carl Wendlinger. Row 10 will be Pierluigi Martini in the Dallara, next to Bertrand Gachot. Row 11, Emanuele Naspetti of Italy, in for Paul Bermondo and making his Formula One debut for March, next to the Tyrrell of Olivier Briard. Row 12, Gianni Morbidelli in the Minardi and Maurizio Gugelmin in the Jordan Yamaha. Row 13, all Japanese, Aguri Suzuki of Japan and Ukio Katayama, he in the Venturi Lamborghini machine. Those who failed to qualify, Christian Fittipaldi back in harness after his big crash back in France. Roberto Moreto and Perry McCarthy, the Andrea Moda team cars were impounded by Belgian authorities for failure to pay debts. Eric Comas was sent home by the doctors with a headache after his big Friday crash, and neither of the Brabhams are here. They are in the hands of their creditors. Sunday warm-up times, Nigel Mansell, Michael Schumacher, Gerhard Berger, Ayrton Senna, and Riccardo Patrese. Brundle, Hakkinen, Alesi, Boutsen, and Capelli rounded out the top 10. A look at our race analysis. It's about 60 degrees and falling rapidly as the clouds continue to build. We have an 80% chance of rain. It is very, very windy. David, a great racetrack with some of the most famous corners in all of Formula One.
Absolutely, and the La Source hairpin is the first corner on the agenda this afternoon, about 200 yards up from the start-finish line. A lot of overtaking is going to go on there on that very first corner. You've got to get through there quickly to go downhill steeply to Eau Rouge, one of the biggest and bravest corners in all of Formula One racing. From then on, it's up to the Les Combes chicane. This is a right, left, right. And then after that, they start to go downhill again. That's the highest point on the track. They start to go downhill again through Rivage, a downhill right-hander. No help here from the camber on the road. Swoop on down there, picking up speed up to 6th gear through the Pouhon, a long, long 165-mile-an-hour left-hander into the Fagnes group of S-bends. Out of there, up through Stavelot, through some very fast left-handers, and into the bus stop chicane, where I'm sure we'll see some overtaking maneuvers this afternoon into that slow chicane.
The cars are on their way. Nigel Mansell carrying one of our onboard cameras today. Now that the driver's title has been decided, the question is, who drives for whom in 1993? Grab your pencils, folks. Here are the headlines this week from the silly season.
The 1993 Who Goes Where merry-go-round moved into top gear this weekend. There's maximum intrigue at Williams with Alain Prost still unconfirmed, but Ayrton Senna sees the Frenchman blocking his way there.
The situation is very clear. Prost has a contract with Williams, and that's for quite some time now. And in his contract, I cannot drive there. And he refuses for me to drive there alongside him. They gave him basically the right to refuse who drives next to him. And he totally refused to drive with me and clearly state that he can't cope with me, not on the relationship, but basically I pushed too hard and he can't cope anymore. I could stay with McLaren, but at this moment I'm not staying with anyone. I'm staying home.
Meanwhile, new world champion Mansell hasn't put pen to contract either. Is he concerned?
Well, not really, because I think that's their problem, not mine. I've switched off. I know a lot of things that are going on, and all I'll make is a sweeping statement like this. It never ceases to amaze me what happens in this game.
With Senna not happy with McLaren, paddock rumour has team boss Dennis buying Schumacher out of his Benetton contract, although Michael denies it.
I have a fixed contract with Benetton, and in the moment I don't see a chance to go somewhere else or to drive somewhere else, and I'm quite happy with Benetton.
Riccardo Patrese is said to have a Benetton contract in his pocket and may, surprisingly, be joined by the Brazilian Formula 3000 hot shoe Rubens Barrichello. Ferrari's lineup is certain. The Scuderia announced this week that Gerhard Berger rejoins them after 3 years at McLaren. The Austrian is delighted.
I hate to be involved in all this politics and speaking around, and that maybe was the reason why I did the decision a little bit earlier, not to get too deep involved in all the things. So now I'm clear and the others have to move.
But who will replace the good Gerhard at McLaren? Ron Dennis does have Michael Andretti's phone number.
And wouldn't that be something? You're in the bus stop chicane on board with Nigel Mansell. Once again, the onboard cameras are in the Williams cars and the McLarens. Notice this left-hand corner. Now, some of the cars will be scattered back around that corner. They will not be able to see the green light when it flashes. Those will be the fastest cars arriving at the La Source hairpin just ahead.
Of course, it's one of the things with these modern Formula One cars. They are so light and fast that the back of the grid is traveling at an incredible speed by the time they get to the front of the grid, even from a standing start.
On top of everything else, it is sprinkling with rain.
A very, very bad situation for the drivers this afternoon. The weather forecast is atrocious. They'll almost certainly have to change to two wet weather tyres at some stage. The question, of course, is when, and this circuit is so long that the conditions could change from one side to another. Here you see what you were saying about the drivers at the back of the field here can't see the light.
The green flag waves. The revs will come up. 5-second board. Mansell's away. We have yellow flags in the middle of the grid. Looks like perhaps Gerhard Berger's car did not start. Berger is stalled on the grid. The rest of the field pulls away. This is La Source. And Berger's out of the car. Oh my, Berger is out, down through Eau Rouge, climbing the hill up to Radillon. It is Senna, followed by Mansell. On to the Kemmel straightaway. 180 miles an hour. Look at one of the Lotuses trying to move up. Mansell takes a look inside Senna. Patrese runs third. Schumacher challenging a lazy for fourth.
A high-speed traffic jam.
Just the tires are starting to glisten a little more. In wet weather qualifying on Saturday, the running order was Mansell, Andrea De Cesaris, Jean Alesi, Michael Schumacher, Terry Boutsen, and J.J. Leto, the top six. Ayrton Senna, the race leader, could do no better than 14th in the rain. The action continues. We'll take a quick timeout as Nigel Mansell continues to hound Ayrton Senna, and we will be back for more live coverage of the Grand Prix of Belgium. Stay with us. ESPN Speed World coverage of the Formula One Grand Prix of Belgium is brought to you by Acura Automobiles. Experience precision-crafted performance. By new STP engine treatment. Help stop engine wear before you start. And by Suzuki. Your Suzuki dealer has the ride you've been waiting for and the financing to get it. From high overhead, conditions continue to deteriorate. You're watching live the Grand Prix of Belgium. Ayrton Senna, the race leader, under attack now from Nigel Mansell. Just behind is Riccardo Patrese. Mansell looks down the inside. Headed down towards Blanchimont. He takes the lead.
Whoa! But they touch wheels there. Nearly 200 miles an hour into Blanchimont.
The red and white flag being waved indicates slippery racetrack. You're not kidding, folks. And now Patrese, coming down to the bus stop, will take a shot at Senna and takes second place. So Senna drops from first to third. Let's get down to Andrew Marriott.
Still down here in the pits, I think we're going to have Ayrton Senna in any minute. In fact, lots of cars coming all together. Everyone going on to wets. Gerhard Berger, incidentally, that was a clutch or drive shaft failure, he's told me. But total chaos in the pits here. You hear cars going out, and we still haven't had Senna in.
We expect wholesale changes to rain tires. We said it was coming, but I don't think anybody expected it to get here this quickly. Now there's Riccardo Patrese. Senna, our race leader. We expect the helicopters that are used to bounce the signals up from the in-cars.
Patrese's our race leader. Patrese's out in front, still on slicks. Now then, these guys have got to go a long way. They've got to go another 2 miles to get back to the pits for their tire changes. And
massive gale force winds over the English Channel, turning small boats over. Things could get very difficult before the day is done. You can see how hard it's raining. No indication yet of high winds. The trees are very still, but it could be coming.
This is not a nice time for a driver. You can see how much rain is falling onto Patrese's camera there as he drops down here, down to the Stavolo right-hander. It could be very wet around any one of these corners and on slick tires. If he gets up on top of the water, there's just nothing he can do about it. This seems to be the wettest part from here back to the pits. This is where Nigel put that incredible move on Senna, touching wheels just under the Goodyear Bridge here at about 190-odd miles an hour in the damp. And it obviously unsettled Senna because it allowed Patrese to slip by him, also going to the bus stop, which is just coming up here. I'm sure that Patrese will pull into the pits this time around.
I can't believe the way he went through Blanchimont in this driving rain. There is Ayrton Senna now being pressed by those two Benettons. Schumacher first and then Brundle, I believe.
For Senna to be that cautious in the rain is a most extraordinary sight.
Now one of the Benettons is in. Looks like Schumacher will pit first for wet weather tires.
And Senna decided to stay out.
Remember Senna a year ago or so in Canada, driving in the rain on slick tires and held the entire field at bay on wets. He can do it better than perhaps anybody, with the possible exception of John Lacey in the Ferrari.
Boy, oh boy, now that is a brave move. But he knows that, of course, it's not raining everywhere around the track, although you can see the water coming off the tires of Patrese's car there as he goes up the Kemmel straight.
Here comes Senna. Behind him, Martin Brundle is now in third place. Behind him, Mika Hakkinen in the Lotus.
Mika Hakkinen going well. Here's John Alesi in the Ferrari.
Keep an eye on Alesi.
Capelli.
Capelli in the Ferrari. Oh, Alesi stopped early. Alesi is running back in 10th. To this downhill right-hander. Very difficult corner. Now, here's Nigel Mansell running just behind one of the Benettons, it appears. That might be Schumacher back out again.
Both these cars now on wet weather tires. Schumacher changing, Brundle not changing, Mansell changing, Patrese not changing.
Let's get down to the pits now. Andrew Marriott is standing by with Gerhard Berger.
Gerhard first, what happened there?
Something broken in the clutch. I just want to start, and the clutch just stay in the same place, and the revs goes up. Then I try to disengage gear, or I push the clutch to put it on the side, but nothing works, so something mechanically broken.
Probably rather glad, because it's terrible out there, isn't it?
Yeah, very difficult conditions. But still, I would prefer than to stand here.
Thank you, Gerhard.
Any racer would prefer to be out on the racetrack. You're looking out the back of Ayrton Senna's car, the lone remaining McLaren. Looking back at one of the Benettons, McLaren desperately trying to keep Williams-Renault from clinching the manufacturer's title today. Basically, all Williams has to do is score 6 points. That's 1 second-place finish, and they will be uncatchable for the constructors' title.
Now then, will Senna pull in this time and change tyres? No, he won't, but Martin Brundle does peel off into the pit. Boy, this is one brave guy to stay out there on those slick tyres at Spa, of all places. As Denny Hulme, world champion in 1967, said to me, of course that was when it was that 8.5-mile circuit, said to me, rain at Spa, park it.
And for a guy like Hulme to say that is
yeah,
telling you something. Now there's the race leader, Riccardo Patrese. Give him credit if that's what's needed here. He is out there on those slick tires. The air is getting more and more moist. You see the little vortexes at the corners of his rear wing from time to time at full speed. Oh, and he gets a little bit sideways. Tiptoeing through Malmedy, named for a nearby town that was so much a part of the Battle of the Bulge in World War II.
But again, that Williams active suspension showing how incredibly good it is as Riccardo Patrese starts to pull away from Senna.
The McLaren crew is ready whenever Ayrton Senna decides to pit. Nigel Mansell on the right, Michael Schumacher just behind him. The order right now is Patrese, Senna, Brundle pitted, knocking him from 3rd. That makes Schumacher 4th, Mika Hakkinen 5th, Ivan Capelli 6th. And the order continues to juggle as cars pit on each successive lap. Downhill to Pujol. Couple of thousand revs below what they would normally be using. Nigel Mansell takes a look down inside the Ferrari, but the Ferrari passes one of the Tyrrells. Olivier Criard with the Tyrrell team has been told he will not be driving for them next year.
Car there snaking. You can see the horizon going, the nose darting across the road, going through the Stabilo, coming up to the right-hander. Short shifting through this corner as he starts the long climb back to the pits.
Nigel Mansell, fastest in the dry, fastest in the wet here at Spa. The new world champion will soon be challenging for the lead, you can be sure. Stay with us. You're riding with Nigel Mansell in the Williams-Renault that has dominated the Formula One season. There is one of the 2 footwork cars having spun. Either Aguri Suzuki.
His own right front suspension.
Now we have a yellow flag.
That's at the source where Alesi is parked.
You see him in the background there in the upper left. So it's Patrese and Mansell now. 44 laps scheduled around this 4.3-mile circuit. Mansell seems none the worse for wear.
No.
Not that Nigel would stop if he had to. Oh. Short of an undrivable car, Nigel will stay out there. He's looking for his 9th win of 1992, which would break the all-time single-season record that he shares with Ayrton Senna. And he's been very vocal about it. He says, I've got the championship, but I want to go on and win races. I want to win the next 5. He also has a shot at Senna's record for poles in a season, which is 13. Nigel has his 10th with 4 more poles to be won this year. In the bus stop, Nigel closes up on his teammate, and then the lead lengthens out again.
It seems to be wettest of all just here in front of the pit area. Michael Schumacher coming up on Nigel Mansell now. There's the hairpin. Just off to the left is the broken car of John Alesi. Nigel using up all the road there. Now, we saw a lot of people doing that a couple of years ago, using that quick, that long way around, but they feel they get better traction as they let the car unwind just a little bit more. Through Eau Rouge, not the place to be when it's wet, quite frankly. I'm glad I'm here.
Big crash in the Formula 3000 race held here yesterday, just as the track was drying out. Luca Badoer had a big crash there. Suffered a concussion, but he's all right.
Schumacher has obviously got very serious thoughts about trying to wrest 2nd place away from Nigel Mansell, which I'm sure that Nigel Mansell is not about to accede to at all.
The running order on the racetrack right now is Senna, Patrese, Mansell, Schumacher, Brundle, Hakkinen, Capelli, Boutsen, Alboreto, and J.J. Leto. Then Johnny Herbert, Gabriele Tarquini, Andre de Cesaris, Bertrand Gachot, and Maurizio Gugelmin. Spa in Belgium is famous for its waters, hence the name Spa. Les Bains, the baths, are where millions of Europeans like to visit to take the medicinal qualities of the local waters. Back home in America, we drink that famous French water. Here in Europe, everybody drinks that famous Belgian water. And despite the looks on this fountain, it is very tasty stuff. Millions of bottles sent around the world all the time.
As long as possible.
Let's take a look at Nigel Mansell's pass of his teammate Riccardo Patrese through the Blanchimont corner, resurfaced this weekend. That's when where Eric Homas had his huge crash right into that tire barrier to the right. Down the inside comes Mansell.
Nigel out-braving his teammate through the second Blanchimont, went a lot quicker through that very fast corner in the rain, allowing him to outbrake him into the bus stop chicane.
Now listen to the revs on this car. They're tippy-toeing through the corners, but Nigel Mansell is giving away nothing in the quick sections.
Probably going through these corners a gear down on what they would normally do. We know he's changed down for Blanchimont. Just listen. Up to 6.
Down through the box for bus stop. You can hear a confidence lift through the second Blanchimont, but Nigel is really getting down.
He changed down a gear and up again. And, of course, normally they go to their flat stick in 6.
Now, we haven't seen Ayrton Senna much, but he remains the leader of this race. Let's get more on his situation now with Andrew.
Yes, he certainly does. Well, they've had the tyre warmers on and off the wet weather tyres here in the McLaren pit. They've taken one set back into the pits because obviously they got too cold. They've got another set back out. They've had the tyre warmers off those. Now they put the warmers back on again. And I think that Ayrton's staying out for the moment anyway, obviously in control of the situation. What a fantastic drive from him, David.
Absolutely extraordinary. He's still got an 8-second lead, but there you see Mansell and Patrese eating into that lead now. I think he's rather whistling into the wind to try and hold off Mansell and Patrese on wet weather tyres. In fact, anybody in this field on wet weather tyres on slicks, because it is just pretty wet all the way around this track. I think he's hoping that it's going to pass away and it's going to dry up again, and everybody else is going to have to stop and put slicks back on again. But I think that's a bit of a forlorn hope just at the moment. But it's a gamble, and racing drivers do gamble.
The wind is picking up just slightly, blowing the raindrops around. Nigel Mansell, with this start, his 177th, breaks the record that he shared with the late Graham Hill for all-time number of starts by a British Grand Prix driver. 176 for Graham Hill, 177 for this man, Nigel Mansell.
And there you see Senna in front of him now as Nigel's reeling him in pretty quickly. Started off the lap 8.5 seconds behind. He's certainly not 8.5 seconds behind as they go into Stavolo, just about halfway around.
To get another look, it appears to me that Patrese's rain light is not working. I don't see one on Senna's car there either.
Senna obviously having to take it very steadily here. Nigel really eating into his lead now. Will no doubt swoop by as they go into the bus stop hairpin again. I wouldn't be surprised. Yep, just flashes by. Oh, through Blanchimont. They've already touched wheels once this afternoon. Whoa, Nigel getting pretty twitchy there, considering he's on the rain tyres and Senna's not. Now then, will Senna pull in this time and put rain tyres on?
It's really wet right there. You can see how the road glistens and the rooster tails being tossed up by the drivers.
Well, he's bound and determined to see this thing out.
Now the Benettons close up.
I think that Patrese is probably holding Schumacher up just a little bit here, which is obviously playing into the hands of Martin Brundle, Schumacher's current teammate.
This is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 all together. There's the third place car of Riccardo Patrese, then Michael Schumacher right there.
All about to swoop by Senna as they go up the Kemmel here, up the main straight. No, perhaps not. must be able to get him on braking. No.
Ron Dennis said, we're getting closer to Williams. The McLaren-Honda combination appears to be working. It's too late to save Senna's title, maybe too late to prevent the Williams team from taking away the McLaren team's 4 consecutive years of constructors' titles.
He's trying to go down the inside into the rivage. This corner's slippery at the best of times. Run here up to 6th gear, then back to 5th for the Pujon. You can see the air being forced over the wing there and the condensation forming.
Patrese pulls up nose to tail for 2nd place.
The added grip of the rain tire through there just got to play. Whoa, no, and Senna's still not letting him through, and those other 2 guys... Patrese starting to get rattled now, because Mansell, who's got round him, of course, has rocketed off out of sight.
This is through Nefanya, heading for... And Patrese goes around the outside.
And Schumacher's about to go around the... Of course, you're also getting pretty desperate because you're aware that Patrese and Senna, Mansell are just disappearing into the distance.
Now here's Brundle coming up one side and Schumacher down the other. Schumacher takes the position.
Oh, and Brundle's going to go around the outside.
Senna's old Formula 3 buddy from England.
And Mika Hakkonen's going to try the same thing. Does it?
Oh, Senna drops 3 places on the run down to Stavolo. It is Mansell, Patrese, Schumacher, Brundle, Hakkonen, and Senna. Stay with us. Back live, on board with Ayrton Senna, running downhill towards the Pujon complex. Watch his right index finger. He's working the gear levers underneath the steering wheel in this McLaren semi-automatic gearbox setup. See those 2 buttons on the steering wheel right next to his thumbs? Those are the ones he's supposed to be using. Those are the primary shift buttons. One takes the gearbox up, one takes it down. Recall Gerhard Berger in Montreal earlier this year said he had problems shifting. He couldn't use the primary system. He had to use the butterflies on the back of the steering wheel. I wonder if Ayrton Senna has a similar clutch problem to the one that stopped Gerhard Berger on the grid, and he cannot stop for wet weather tires because he's afraid he'll never get going again.
That's a possibility. But whatever, if he's waiting for the rain to clear up, I think he's going to have a long wait. Under the Goodyear Bridge into the Blanchimont, rather him than me on slick tires through those fast corners. Down to 5th to the 2nd part.
The pits have the covers off a new set of rain tires, as Andrew Marriott described earlier. And they're looking as though they're ready for him.
There's Capelli caught him up now.
He has gone
coming in now.
First. Now
he
comes
in.
Well, we'll see if he has a problem. Everybody in the pit will have a problem if he had trouble stopping in the wet.
Well, a very good pit stop from Ayrton Senna. No problem with that clutch or the gear lever or the gear shift mechanism. He went away. That was absolutely a brilliant stop by McLaren. They were so calm and collected, and Senna's back in the race. Let's see what he can do now on those groove tyres.
Well, so much for my Formula 1 engineering career. Now, there you see the Benetton boys. Michael Schumacher, whose 17-year-old brother Ralf Schumacher may be the next Michael. He's driving in the German Junior Formula, and he is all over the racetrack.
Schumacher using up plenty of road there. Now he's got Senna out of his way in front of him. He's managing to put a bit of daylight between himself and his teammate Martin Brundle. Brundle having that unfortunate incident yesterday afternoon at the hairpin. Stefano Modena. Schumacher pretty quick in the wet, but Brundle's had a great year this year. As the year has progressed, it started off horribly, but it certainly has picked up as the year's gone on. He's had some great races, terribly unlucky in Hungary not to finish 2nd. If he hadn't lost 6th gear, he would have almost certainly been 2nd in that race.
Everybody's wondering whether Martin Brundle will have a job next year. He confided to one of our reporters that he's been told by team director Tom Walkinshaw there's a 25% chance that Martin will be back with the Benetton team next year. We hear that Patrese is going there. The question is, will Schumacher stay? And as Andrew Marriott described earlier in our silly season piece, we're hearing that possibly Schumacher's contract may be sold to another team. Specifically, Ferrari. Ricardo Patrese through the bus stop. Still terribly wet there. There's Nigel Mansell, the overall race leader. 14 laps complete. This is lap 15 we're now completing. There's the second place car, Riccardo Patrese. The running order is Mansell, Patrese, Schumacher, Brundle, then Hakkinen, then Capelli, then Senna, Boutsen, Alboreto, Leto, Herbert, Tarquini, De Cesaris, Gasho, Suzuki, Grugelman, Van de Poel, Modena, Wendlinger, and Naspetti.
I think that having got round Senna, that Schumacher and Brundle are actually catching up with the dynamic duo. They're only just...
These cars have traction control to help them keep their footing in the wet. Electronic devices sense the problems when a tire loses grip. Now this is Senna going around Andrea De Cesaris.
Never an easy man to pass.
De Cesaris not shown in any... Well, he's in 13th place.
De Cesaris not on anybody's lips in the silly season talk. Of course, one of the things about De Cesaris, he always has a good budget from the family coffers, which has certainly helped to keep him in Grand Prix racing for a very, very long time.
Our electronic timing and scoring system finally recycled, which takes it a long time to do on this long 4-mile racetrack. Senna is running back in the 12th position right now, just having passed Andrea De Cesaris. Everything else is status quo, and we'll be back for more live from Spa, Belgium. The historic valley of the Ardennes Forest, through which tanks rumbled during World War II. This weekend, race cars rumble through the Ardennes Forest, and racing very much on the mind of Belgians all across the Ardennes, hoping to become the next Jackie Ickx, or perhaps the next Eric Van de Poel, or Terry Boutsen, Belgian racing stars all. Riding on board with Nigel Mansell, seeking a record-breaking 9th victory in 1992.
Coming into the bus stop chicane, bouncing right over the curb there. That active suspension soaking up those curbs. Leaves the chicane, up past the pits for the 16th time. Now has got quite a good lead on his teammate.
As the rain
about a 4.5, 5-second lead.
Mansell now using all of the pavement as he heads on the lightning-fast downhill run to Eau Rouge, red water at the bottom of the hill. There is a creek there that runs underneath the racetrack, and a hotel named Eau Rouge. Quick look at the Benetton cars before we go back to Nigel Mansell. You want to see the domination of Nigel Mansell? Look at the top line of the graphic. 8 victories and 11 starts. Could be 9 for 12 when day is done, breaking the record that Ayrton Senna set back in 1988. Jimmy Clark, Alain Prost. Ayrton Senna won 7 in a year back in 1988. Did it again in 1991. Back in 88, the McLaren team won 15 out of 16 Formula One races. Hard to complain about the way Williams is doing this year. Williams runs 1-2 on the racetrack, seeking that Constructors' Championship. Andrew Marriott is standing by with the Williams team test driver without a drive this weekend.
Yeah, Damon Hill, first, Brabham have gone away, it seems. Is that forever?
It could well be, but there's still a chance that the team may be back from Monza. We're going to have to wait and see what happens over the next week.
Big disappointment for you, of course, that situation, because you had a good run in Hungary.
Yeah, so we're making some progress with the car, as much as you can without any money. But really, the situation needs to be rectified. Either you carry on properly or you stop, I think.
What about the traction control on the Williams? Because you test that regularly. Traction control good for this race?
A big advantage, yeah.
Damon, thanks very much. Let's hope we see you in Grand Prix racing soon. Bye.
There's a proper test driver for you. Yes, there is a traction control, and yes, it works just fine. Thank you very much.
Damon Hill, of course, was yours truly's co-driver the last time I did Le Mans back in 1988. Somebody missed the chicane there, the bus stop there. I'll have to stop on the exit here and wait till the field goes through. Can't see who it was, but it was somebody just in front of Nigel Mansell. Who was Nigel Mansell about to lap?
Hard to tell. Nobody's been lapped among the top 20.
The Belgian hero. Goes well in the wet. I thought he's got the most number of laps under his belt. So that has broken a fine 1992 record for the footwork team and Michele Alboreto.
Alboreto has about 45 more laps of racing than the next closest man, Nigel Mansell. That will change at least a little bit today. We are working lap number 22. 21 are complete, quickly approaching halfway in the Grand Prix of Belgium. Patrese, Schumacher, and there Martin Brundle.
Martin Brundle desperate to do well here, especially against his teammate, who has become the benchmark against which Brundle is being compared this year. Into the super fast Eau Rouge, up through Radillon. Not much runoff area on the edge there. Jackie Stewart, of course, was making some comments to us earlier this weekend on Friday that he felt that that corner needed to be modified. He felt that for the speed of the cars through it, there was not enough runoff area. As the rain comes down, a bit of light in the sky there over in the distance, but certainly not light here as it rains hard on Riccardo Patrese's. Is that Riccardo Patrese? Yeah, Riccardo Patrese's lens down to Rivage. It doesn't look as steep on the TV as it really is. This is a pretty steep downhill section here. They drop some 300 feet in about a mile. So it's quite a steep incline, this. Into the Pouhon, down to 5th gear. Normally take this at about 165, probably down to about 140-ish this afternoon.
That Renault engine behind him revving to about 14,000. It is so high-tech. Pneumatic valve control, inlet trumpets that raise up or lower down depending on the RPM range to get just the right quantity of air into the cylinders. Absolutely spectacular machine. 750, 800 horsepower. There's Terry Boutsen in the blue
got round Capelli. And there goes Johnny Herbert around Capelli.
That's J.J. Leto in the
Those J.J. Leto's catching them up there.
Dallara in red. Lotus in green and yellow. Speaking of green and yellow, there go the Benetton boys.
Johnny Herbert now up to 9th spot. 8th spot, in fact, because Alboretto's out. He was running in front of him. This lot running tied as if by a piece of rope together.
We are now at halfway. Riccardo Patrese running second, comes around to complete lap 22. This is the halfway mark of the Belgian Grand Prix. In case you're wondering what's at stake this year, on top of all of the history book pages, the total cash purses split up by the teams in Formula One this year is likely to exceed $36 million. Over $2.5 million per event. It's all spread around in a very, very complicated system to the top 20 cars based on qualifying and your position in the race at the quarter, halfway, 3/4, and finish of the event. And the Williams team, for all of their success this year, does what many Formula One teams do. They compensate everybody back at the factory. Everybody at Williams Grand Prix Engineering gets a cash bonus based on each point scored by the team in Formula One competition. And some of these mechanics can more than double their salaries just in bonuses. The battle continues. From high overhead, you're looking down on the roads of Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium, through Eau Rouge and up the hill. We'll be right back.
How do you do? Greetings from Belgium. I have here today's top 10 list. The category today, top 10 enjoyable things about ESPN's Formula One coverage. Top 10 enjoyable things about ESPN's Formula One coverage. Here we go, number 10. Getting up at dawn to watch coverage of European races makes weekends seem really long. Number 9, just crazy about new pit lane reporter Robin Leach. Number 8, Own Life gains perspective knowing Bertrand Gachot has done time. Number 7, never tire of Craftsman commercial featuring A.J. Foyt telling us how much he loves wrenches. Number 6, staying up until midnight Sunday to watch tape-delayed coverage of Japanese and Australian races makes weekends seem really long. Number 5, sight of garage door closing at speed of light as drivers are pursued for interviews. Good lesson for youngsters. Number 4, never know when outbreak of Legionnaire's disease may enable Andre de Cesaris to finish in the points. Number 3, entire family loves to imagine David Hobbs being strip searched at customs. Number 2, still hoping for consensus on pronunciation of A.I. Ayrton Senna. And the number 1 enjoyable thing about ESPN's Formula One coverage, just plain fun to say Mika Hakkinen.
There you have it, folks. A totally unsolicited vote of confidence for the ESPN Formula One team.
I'm not too sure about that strip searching business. It sounds rather risque to me. And, of course, talking of Mika Hakkinen, he is in 5th spot. Now being followed by Capelli, and right behind Capelli is Johnny Herbert.
Thanks to our #1 fan, David Letterman, and all the folks at the late night office for handing us that little welcome back. I wonder if anybody in the audience had any idea what Dave was talking about.
Yeah. They all laugh at the right place. They must have a big sign there that says laugh. Now then, who was that Mansuela was... oh, he's giving the old thumbs up to the guy he just passed. Very nice of him, very gentlemanly. There's Capelli and...
Johnny Herbert.
Johnny Herbert. Winding them in. Herbert has had an absolutely electrifying run up through the field this afternoon. Keep cool, Johnny. Think of ice, as Granny used to say.
Poor Ivan Capelli. His career with Ferrari this year began when he was on his way to test at Maranello, and he was held up at gunpoint on the highway. The thieves took his wallet and a collection of watches he had with him in his car. Now he comes to Hungary only to be told, you're not going to be driving for us next year, pal. Gerhard Berger will be in the flaming red machine.
V12 power telling as they go down that fast hill to Eau Rouge. Johnny Herbert, I suspect, keeping his foot in it just a bit more up Eau Rouge, but now again that long uphill climb. Hard for that V8 to get to grips with the V12. Up to the block there, Lecombe. No.
Unfortunately, there is a little problem on the gearbox, and the car stopped in neutral. I have no gears on anymore. The problem was this ball one, but enough to stop me.
How were the conditions before you had that problem?
No, I was quite happy because I changed for the wet quite early, and I was in a good position catching the Capelli Ferraris. So I was in a good place to make points this time, but this time I stopped, so that's the motor racing.
Michele, thanks very much. This is Robin Leach handing you back.
Oh, thank you, Robin.
Well done, Andrew. Of course, we had to explain to Andrew who Robin Leach was. Now the Ferrari begins to draw away from Johnny Herbert. John Barnard, of course, the doyen of Formula One designers, has a new 5-year contract to design the new Ferrari. You want a little inside tip on what he's working on? Watch out for a new automatic Formula One transmission that reads the road and makes the shifts where it wants to. Unbelievable, the march of technology in Formula One.
Our leader, you see, moving over to the left-hand side of the road there to keep his tyres a bit cool and wet as he comes down to Pouhon.
While Nigel Mansell leads, let's take a look at our Suzuki race recap. Nigel been leading since he took over in that mess of pit stops after the rain started to fall. There's been 3 official lead changes. The other leaders are Senna and Patrese. Mansell led 12 of the first 23 laps and continues in the lead. Fastest lap thus far, set by Ayrton Senna, 2 minutes, 13.341 seconds. Gianni Morbidelli off in the Minardi there.
Trying to drive round the back. There's one of the Fond Metal.
It looks like Gabriella Tarquini off in the Fond Metal. That team in deep financial trouble. There's Johnny Herbert still chasing Ivan Capelli.
There's that dry line that Senna was hoping would appear earlier on. Probably still not dry enough for a slick tyre, but the way he drives in the wet, maybe it would have been. Herbert going the long way round, but the quick way round, because he's off that greasy line onto the fresh side of the track.
On board with your leader, Nigel Mansell, who has come around to complete lap number 25. We'll be back with more live from Spa. You're looking at the Ferrari pit crew. On the left, Jean-Claude Migeot, the aerodynamicist, in yellow. On the right, in black, Harvey Postlethwaite, the team's racing director. If they look unhappy, here's why. You saw that battle between Johnny Herbert and Ivan Capelli. Capelli, as Elmo Langley used to say, done blowed up.
Done blowed up right in Johnny Herbert's face.
So both Ferraris are now out of the race. You're on board with Nigel Mansell in Lecombe, the highest point on the racetrack, through the Malmedy corner, and then he starts plunging downhill.
And you can see that dry road coming in front of him. And And in fact, more on our dry line is with our pit reporter down in the pits, Robin Andrew Leach.
Yes, thanks very much. Well, I think the rainiest place in this racetrack all day has been the pits, but now it has dried out here, and we got definitely a drying pit lane as well. Could see a lot more pit visitors today.
Thank you, Andrew. Terry Boutsen has been in and out. The Belgian is back on dry.
It had just hung on for about another 3 or 4 laps. That dry line would now be playing right into his hands.
13 cars remain on the lead lap. And more being passed all the time by Nigel Mansell. As you watch Michael Schumacher, rumor has it, I'm sure you all know about the absolutely astronomical Sal Schumacher makes about $200,000 a year. He has moved to Monaco, not because he wants to hide his money from the taxman, but because of the pressure of being the star of Formula One. He can no longer go home to the little village of Kerpen, Germany, and get any rest or relaxation at all.
Nigel obviously deciding to stay out of the... Whoa! Nigel's front right locked up there as he went into La Source. Of course, at this sort of stage, with the road drying out, the performance of a wet weather tyre can go down very, very dramatically, especially when you have to take it through corners like this. You obviously have to stay on line to go through a corner like Eau Rouge, which is now dried up, whipped right back to the left-hand side of the road there to try and soak up some of that water, back to the right-hand off-line again to try and keep those tyres as wet as possible.
He's finding water, as you can see, but the dry line is now underfoot.
Because this is the sort of high-speed circuit that's really going to chew those tyres up if they have to stay out on them. So he's going to make a decision, should he stop or shouldn't he? Probably another couple of laps he will do.
I'm betting he'll stop soon. You're now on board with Ricardo Patrese. Nigel Mansell was very worried about rain for this race, so on Friday in dry weather, he scuffed in extra sets of slick tires because he didn't think he'd be able to do it on Saturday. I wonder how many drivers in the field had that much foresight.
They also did a thing yesterday afternoon they've not been allowed to do before. During the qualifying, in the wet, they stopped at various places. Nigel Mansell stopped right here, for instance, and did a practice start. And the reason for that was that they'd had special dispensation because with the traction control, their engineers were setting the chips. And here's center into spit on slicks. Okay, now that was a quick stop. Boy, oh boy. I hope Robin was timing that.
Very quick indeed. You see him getting down to the pit lane. A year ago, his teammate Gerhard Berger spun at the end of the pit lane here in Spa. That's the La Source hairpin. There's a tavern just beyond that sign, which also carries the La Source name. Now Mansell through Blanchimont. He has the wet. He has the bus stop chicane and then the pit in.
That must be Boutsen.
Terry Boutsen has crashed the Ligier. Oh, my.
Well, so a Belgian driver is still not to improve on that third position. Best ever third position. There he walks back. The long trudge back to pit.
Here comes Schumacher and then Martin Brundle. There you see the Ligier team on the pit wall. Their technical director and car designer, Frank Durney, has departed the team. Guy Ligier, the team owner, former rugby player and racing driver, has sworn that he will shake up his team. And as I said earlier, a lot of people think Ligier is about ready to get out of Formula One racing. Consider that when Ligier started in 1976, their team budget was $600,000. In 1981, when they were a contender for the World Championship, they were spending $4 million a year. Now they are spending over $40 million, much of it French government money, and they simply cannot get out of their own way on the racetrack. Michael Schumacher in the Benetton, now back on board with Nigel Mansell.
They'll be sending a French government agency gentleman to see you very shortly with a baseball bat for saying that, no doubt. Down the hill, into the water on the left.
Now if I get out of town, still looking for water, but still quite dry here.
See, the trouble is you've got to stay on line in a corner like this, and of course the line is now dry, and a long corner like that would do tremendous damage to those wet weather tyres being as dry as it is. I'm sure we'll see Mansell stop within a lap or two, unless, of course, he can see rain coming that we can't see from the booth on this other side of the track.
Past the farmhouse, through the Stavelot corner, back on the road again.
Up through Blanchimont, the first part. Just backs off for the second part. Boy, that's pretty fast on wet weather tyres.
Running in team order, 2 Williams cars, 2 Benetton cars, 2 Lotus cars, the top 6. One of the Fawn medals up ahead. We saw Gabriele Tarquini pull over. So that is Eric Van de Poel, the sole remaining Belgian in the race, now gets passed. Nigel Mansell has lapped all but the top 10 cars. It is Mansell, Patrese, and Schumacher. We'll be back to Belgium. From high overhead on the Francorchamps-Stavelot Road, Nigel Mansell rocketing around. Ayrton Senna almost spun. Let's take a look now. This is J.J. Leto, the Finn, waving Senna past. You could see the car bucking as he struggled with the clutch, and Senna went around.
Senna on slicks, of course, on the one wet place on the track. Got nudged there by Leto, so he won't be a happy boy. He was about to take 7th spot away from Leto.
I think Leto was the nudgee. There's Nigel at the same spot on the racetrack. And even with the wet weather tires, it is very slick right there. The running order right now is Mansell, Patrese, Brundle, and there's Martin Brundle pitting, so scratch that. Because not far behind Brundle is his teammate Michael Schumacher, who pitted just before Brundle. Let's get down to Andrew Marriott.
Well, Martin Brundle has just accelerated out of the pits. He is now on slicks, as most of the field are. I think that Nigel Mansell will be the next pit stopper. The Williams team are on full alert. They've got all the tyre warmers off, and they are waiting and ready for Nigel to come in, but he hasn't been seen here yet. Back to you, Bob.
He is halfway around the lap. He's about as far away from the pits as he can be right here. From the pits, you can actually see this part of the racetrack. There is La Source, way over there in the distance, in that little group of buildings. And believe it or not, on this track, 4.3 miles long, Nigel Mansell is threatening to lap the field. 11 cars are on the lead lap. Of course, Nigel leading the parade. Riccardo Patrese running almost 10 seconds back in second. And then about 5 seconds, well, more than that now, back to Martin Brundle, who just stopped for tires. The car is very spread out now on this long racetrack.
They will have of course, soon sort themselves out after the pit stop, because when Nigel stops, that'll bring the field closer to him. And the people who are on slicks have picked up speed and are probably gaining ground on him quite fast at this stage. You can see how that dry line has developed there. Up to the bus stop chicane. Nigel desperately trying to find water. None available. There's Suzuki in the remaining footwork, followed by Andrea De Cesaris.
Suzuki runs 10th and De Cesaris 11th, so that's a battle for position.
Nigel doesn't come in.
Look
at that left rear tyre. The black mark starting to show there. I think he's starting to show a bit of wear on that, but he wants those slicks on the wet weather tyres for this bit of the track.
A little bit of shade on the tire indicates where the tire is heating up. And if it stays in one place for too long, it threatens to blister. Now in the pits is Riccardo Patrese.
Yeah, Riccardo Patrese's got 4 slicks on already. And the team getting tyres into position now for Nigel Mansell's pit stop.
Boy, that pit lane is jolly dangerous here, isn't it? It's so narrow.
Suzuki trying to go around Andrea De Cesaris. He couldn't do it. I've got that back.
The other way around.
De Cesaris actually did get around Suzuki, right? There we go. That was for 10th. Nigel watching it all from behind. He goes by Suzuki now.
Johnny Herbert in the pits. I'm assuming it's Herbert or Harkonnen.
The Lotus team doing so well. Recall just a few years ago, Lotus failed to...
Fortunately, he's currently banned from driving on Her Majesty's highways because he was caught doing 125 miles an hour past London Airport. The local constabulary frowned upon this infraction of the rules.
Oh, the story is so much better. Apparently, the constable stopped him, looked him right full in the world-famous face and said, "What do you think you are, Nigel Mansell?"
That one's just too good to be true.
Anyway, that's what I was told.
That's a good story. There's Patrese lying in 3rd spot behind Schumacher and Mansell, and Brundle right behind him there in 4th. Brundle hanging on to Patrese extremely well this afternoon.
Trying desperately to keep his job with the Benetton team. One of our reporters asked Brundle what he would be driving next year. He said the test truck for Benetton. Now Nigel Mansell will be closing in on race leader Michael Schumacher. Ricardo Patrese runs third. Brundle is fourth.
Well, he may be closing in, but he's out of sight at the moment. Oh, no, that's Ricardo Patrese.
Right.
Who's
Mansell is somewhere up ahead.
floundering around in the dirt a few laps back. Lets him by, that's fine. Into the Fagnes S-curves on the way down to Stavelot, the lowest point of the circuit. And there's Mansell coming through those same curves, so he's not too far behind.
We may be watching history. If Michael Schumacher wins this race in his 18th Grand Prix, it certainly will not be the earliest first Grand Prix victory, but it will certainly be the cheapest to the team if he's only making 200 grand a year. There goes Nigel Mansell. Now, in these changing conditions, of course, braking is very important, and it's the bias control lever that is important. Andrew Marriott takes a closer look at brake bias in a track fact.
As we've told you before, the cockpit and dashboard of a Grand Prix racing car is very different from that of a normal automobile. Let's just look at this footwork for a minute and look down at some of the special dials. One of the most interesting is the brake balance bar. Now, this actually alters the balance of the brakes front to rear. That can be adjusted, and drivers do that if the conditions change, particularly if it's wet. It's actually adjusted by this little green knob down here. If we turn it this way, you put the brake balance onto the front, turn it the other way, and the balance goes onto the rear. So, a brake balance adjustment, very important for the Grand Prix driver.
Ricardo Patrese on a line that even I could follow with... Oh! Wow, Martin Brundle.
Martin Brundle got a bit locked up, bit out of shape there, and got onto the wet. Oh, that's a pity. That dropped him back just those few vital seconds with just a few laps to go.
Keep in mind, they are on slick tires through La Source there in the wet. There you see the Benetton crew, and they have good reason to smile. Their man, Michael Schumacher, is leading the race. He is 4.5 seconds ahead of Nigel Mansell. Ricardo Patrese on the Kemmel straightaway, up to about 185, 188 miles an hour. Here's the gap back to the car of Martin Brundle. They are fourth, third and fourth. Mika Hakkinen is fifth. Ayrton Senna sixth. Followed by J.J. Leto, Johnny Herbert, Aguri Suzuki, Andrea de Cesaris, Bertrand Gachot, Eric Van der Poel, Carl Wendlinger, Emanuele Naspetti having a great Formula One debut with the March team, right there with his teammate Wendlinger, just 7 seconds behind. Maurizio Gugelmin, Stefano Modena, and Gianni Morbidelli. Up and over the hill goes Ayrton Senna.
I'm not quite sure why we're not looking at there's Ayrton Senna, but I'm not quite sure why we're not looking at Schumacher and Mansell here, because this is going to be the race of the century, and there we are with your actual Nigel Mansell coming up on a slower car into the bus stop chicane. That's one of the Jordans. It's Stefano Modena, just what he didn't need at that particular point. Now he's forced over onto the wet, and he, of course, has got slick tires.
This is where Modena had his big spin and crash with Martin Brundle. I spoke with Modena in the hotel this morning.
Schumacher just going out of sight.
Modena said he had his brake bias too far to the rear, which is why he spun and plonked Brundle.
Yeah, the brake bias that Andrew showed us there has been used a lot this afternoon, I can guarantee it, with the changing conditions and, of course, the changing weight of the cars. Bertrand Gachot does it again.
One good turn deserves another. Now, there's the leader, and there's Mansell in the background. The last time we had a first-time winner in Formula One was back in 1989 in Japan. Sandro Nannini. Remember when Ayrton Senna was disqualified?
He was trying to avoid Andrea de Cesaris, I think. He came up on him too fast, spun around, and of course when Nannini, to change the subject tremendously quickly, won that race, he also was winner of Benetton, right?
That's right. In fact, Sandro Nannini, who lost his right arm in a helicopter crash, had it surgically reattached. As you look at Frank Williams, Nannini is driving very well in the Italian Touring Car Series. In fact, he may lead the Alfa Romeo team in the Italian Touring Car Series next year. And maybe someday we'll get back into a Formula One car, if only for a test.
Now then, Schumacher. The pressure really on this young German, relatively inexperienced, just doing his 16th Grand Prix. and being pressed very hard by Nigel Mansell. Can't count, 18th Grand Prix.
Sweeping through the Ardennes faster than our cameraman can keep up with him. There's the bus stop chicane, so named, of course, because that's exactly what it is in real life. This is all part of a park, but this is a permanent racing circuit. It is here all year. All those buildings you see stay there year-round.
Nigel Mansell, has he slowed up? Because that Jordan of Stefano Modena is hanging on to him, which I find almost impossible to believe it would be normally.
Well, Nigel Mansell has closed the gap on Schumacher to 3 seconds. The Constructors' Championship still at stake. They will win it if Mansell and Patrese maintain their positions. Williams-Renault will be the 92 Constructors' Champions. But the question right now is Nigel Mansell in a healthy race car. We'll be back with more. In the bus stop chicane, Nigel Mansell running second. The world champion is running slowly. Let's get a report from Andrew Marriott.
Yes, I'm afraid, Bob, I don't know the reason for that, but he did lose 6 seconds on the last lap. He dropped 6 seconds to Schumacher. It really does look as if it's going to be a magic anniversary for Michael Schumacher. Back to you, Bob.
4 laps remaining before Michael Schumacher gets that first victory. Nigel Mansell way back now to 15 seconds behind him. Let's listen and see if there's a discernible engine problem.
I tell you what, he didn't change up till awfully long way up that hill.
Wonder if he's losing revs in the engine. It just sounds just that little bit rough.
Well, he didn't change up to 6, or we don't know what gear he changed up to, but so that elusive 9th win, eluding Nigel as Schumacher shoots up the Kemmel.
Elusive winds have a tendency to do that. From high overhead, racing through the Ardennes,
elusive.
An absolutely stunning sound from that Ford V8. A wall of noise is carrying Michael Schumacher. You can see from that camera shot how that part of the course is on a high ridge, and then they plunge downhill. There is Nigel up through Radillon onto the Kemmel straightaway. Not much he can do at this point, but just try to hang on. Riccardo Patrese is about 7 seconds behind him and will start closing in. There he comes now with a clutch of slower cars. There'll be just a couple of laps remaining when we return live to Belgium. This should be quite a finish. Stay with us. From high overhead down through the Radillon turn,
Rivage.
Yes, Rivage corner comes Michael Schumacher, 23 years of age, in his 18th Formula One Grand Prix. The man just sets new standards of performance every time he goes to the racetrack.
31 seconds ahead of his immediate pursuer, who's Nigel Mansell, who will probably be replaced by Riccardo Patrese, who's only 30 seconds behind. Here is Nigel Mansell coming down to wherever we are coming down to. Oh, yeah, into the Rivage. So it just shows you there's that far behind. He's probably 40 seconds behind now. Down to the left-hand part of this Rivage, steeply downhill. On board, the engine sounds okay, but when you go to the outside microphones, you can hear that the thing sounds absolutely desperate.
There is Michael Schumacher once again. For some reason, our friends from Belgian television don't want to get a good close look at him, because he is about to do something extraordinary. On the debut, the anniversary of his debut last year at this very racetrack, Schumacher came from sports car racing, stepped into the Jordan Ford, qualified 7th. It broke on the grid. He did not get to complete a lap. Went on and scored points in his 2nd Formula One race at Monza, and now in his 18th Grand Prix, where it all began a year ago, it appears that Michael Schumacher will score his first victory. He is
just hang on to this, kid. Sparks flying as he goes into the Fagnes curve. The Benetton chassis is obviously one of the top chassis out there, probably second only to the Williams this year. Just a little bit down on power with the V8, which normally here at Spa would not have been quite so successful, but that rain obviously helped him early on in the day. He had a great race in the rain. Did the tyre stop right? Johnny Herbert parked on the side of the road. Johnny Herbert had pulled up to 7th spot, had a great run.
Boy, his last couple of corners now for this man, Michael Schumacher.
Well, this certainly atones for last year when he, as you say, didn't get away from the line. Now he's going to cross the line and take his first checkered flag.
And what a drive. He kept the car on course on dry tires in wet weather, wet tires in drier weather. Tom Walkinshaw nearest the camera, Flavio Briatore with the team, congratulating one another. They are the two principals who run the team for the Benetton company. Here is Nigel Mansell. He'll be approaching bus stop.
Is Nigel Mansell going to be able to hang on to second spot from his teammate Riccardo Patrese? Looks like it.
Struggling with the gearbox. You see his head jerking forward and back. Nigel Mansell takes a hard-earned second place and adds unnecessary but welcome points to his total. You may have heard the sound of Michael Schumacher pulling into Parc Fermé just below our announced position. Riccardo Patrese coming home in third place. Williams-Renault will win the 1992 Constructors title. There is Michael Schumacher. At the upper right-hand corner of your screen are your announcers. And the rain is really starting to fall. There's Maurizio Gugelmin pulling in the Jordan Yamaha. What a day here in Spa. Tom Walkinshaw talking with his team.
Great, really great.
Benetton breaks through for the first time since Nelson Piquet was driving for them. And I'll bet Nelson is watching today. We'll be back. As the race cars pull into Parc Fermé, Andrew Marriott is standing by with Team Technical Director for Benetton, Tom Walkinshaw.
Tom, jubilant scenes down here. You must be very delighted.
Yeah, obviously we are. You know, we knew it was only a matter of time before Michael would win. I think he did a fantastic job today. Team worked very well. We pulled him in early to make the break on the slick tires, and he made the most of it. And he did a really good job.
You really helped by calling the race so well.
Yeah, well, we've raced here a lot in sports cars and touring cars, so we can read the weather pretty well. So we're lucky we brought him in at the right time. It gave him a cushion, and he made the most of it. He did a good job.
What about these McLaren rumours? We keep hearing them, Tom.
There's lots of rumours about. I don't think you'll find anything like that happening in any of the rumours.
I knew you'd say that. Back to you, Bob.
No way they're going to let go of Michael Schumacher now, no matter what the truth of the situation might have been. Let's take a look at the final results. Michael Schumacher, the margin of victory, 36.595 seconds over Nigel Mansell, followed by Riccardo Patrese third, Martin Brundle fourth, Ayrton Senna fifth, and Mika Hakkinen in the sixth and final points-paying position, following up on a great effort in Hungary. Seventh, J.J. Leto, followed by Andrea de Cesaris, Aguri Suzuki, and Eric Van de Poel in the 10th spot. Carl Wendlinger, 11th, followed by Emanuele Naspetti with a terrific race for the rookie. Johnny Herbert, who dropped out of the race but will be scored 13th. Mauricio Gugelmin, 14th, followed by Stefano Modena, Gianni Morbidelli, Ukio Katayama, and Bertrand Gachot. Fast lap of the race went to Michael Schumacher as well. A terrific performance for the young German, who at 23 will go into the record books as a Grand Prix winner.
An absolutely outstanding afternoon's work, and as Tom Walkinshaw said, they got everything just right on the way he drove and the way they organized the teamwork, and of course pulled him in early to get those slicks out.
Here's a look at the constructors' points. Williams-Renault clinches the 1992 title. You'll read about that in the Monday newspapers, I'm sure. It'll be in the advertising section. Benetton Ford finishes second, or at least is second at this point in the season. McLaren Honda now third, Ferrari fourth, followed by the Lotus Ford team and Footwork in fifth position. Let's get back down to Andrew Marriott.
Well, Bernard Duda, it's a big day for Renault, isn't it? Very big day for Renault.
Yes, it's a very big day because we are waiting for this day 15 years ago, and it's very, very important for us.
What about your partnership with the English team Williams?
It was really fantastic. I wish to continue like that because really we worked during 3 years in the best condition.
Plenty of French champagne tonight?
Sure, tonight and maybe tomorrow also.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Andrew. A red-letter day for France. Renault wins in Formula One, and Peugeot, another French brand, clinched the World Sports Car Constructors' Championship today. Stay with us. Welcome back to Belgium, where for the 27th year, the Grand Prix has been presented on one of the world's most awesome and majestic racing circuits, Spa-Francorchamps. ESPN Speed World coverage of the Formula One Grand Prix of Belgium has been brought to you by Haviland Formula 3 Motor Oil. Add more life to your car. And by Anheuser-Busch, who proudly brings you Family Talk. Let's stop underage drinking before it starts. On the podium in yellow, Michael Schumacher, embraced by Flavio Briatore of the Benetton team. Schumacher becomes the first German winner of a Grand Prix since Jochen Mass back in 1975. Now here's what it does to the Drivers' Championship. Mansell, the world champion with 102. Patrese in second with 44. Schumacher bumps Ayrton Senna from third to fourth. It is Schumacher, Senna, Berger, and Martin Brundle. Nigel Mansell helps Michael Schumacher hoist the trophy. This will be a very, very popular victory up and down the pit lane. David, all in all, quite a moment for the young guy.
I think it's true to say that this man here, Michael Schumacher, really is appreciated by everybody in racing too, the mechanics, the team owners, and the other drivers. Everybody realizes he's an unspoiled, but very, very, very effective racing driver. He's got a great career in front of him.
With a younger brother behind him, Ralf Schumacher, no doubt hoping to someday follow his brother into Formula One. A huge crowd on hand today, even though it cost up to $300 US for a ticket. Checkered flag coverage of today's Grand Prix of Belgium is coming your way Thursday, the 3rd of September at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Our next stop on the Formula One World Tour will be the Grand Prix of Italy at wonderful, majestic, and incredibly fast Monza. That will be Sunday, September 13th at 8:50 a.m. Eastern Time. Later on today, Indy cars are in action in one of the most beautiful cities anywhere, the Indy Vancouver, a three-way battle for the championship. Bobby Rahal, Al Unser Jr., and Michael Andretti. There may be a future Formula One driver among them. That's coming your way today at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Congratulations again to Michael Schumacher, a first-time winner in Formula One, congratulating his teammate Martin Brundle. I'm Bob Barsha for David Hobbs and Andrew Marriott. Thanks for being with us. So long from Spa, Belgium.